Harriet, this is for you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the council meeting of the Township of North Frontenac for Thursday, June the 6th, 2024. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that 80 years ago today, D-Day took place, and it changed the course of our lives. We talk about the Twin Towers in New York and so on, but here's some of the figures. And this is borrowed from Trudeau's speech from today, by the way. So, if it's wrong, you can blame him. 160,000 troops landed on the first day alone. Of those, 4,400 were killed, including 381 Canadians. In the 77-day battle that followed, 73,000 people died, plus 20,000 more French civilians and 153,000 wounded. And that doesn't include what happened on the German side. So it was quite an auspicious day. So our meeting is called to order at 5:02. Please be advised, North Frontenac Council meetings are recorded. By attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and comments being recorded. Members of council, staff, delegates, and attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior or comments. We also include now a traditional land acknowledgement. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the First Peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the Township of North Frontenac is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. Approval of the agenda?
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that council approves the agenda dated June 6, 2024 as circulated.
Any comments? In favor? The motion is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none. Business profile, Homestead Studio Glass.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the business profile of Homestead Studio Glass provided by Derek Lancaster, member of the Economic Development Task Force.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Okay, so we have a special guest with us today, Harriet Riddell. So it's easier if I come around. So back in 19 years, Harriet joined us, joined the world. I went to visit Harriet yesterday because I wanted to make sure that what I was going to say, which wasn't going to be much, but I have a habit of getting some of this stuff wrong, and I wanted to make sure I got it right. So Harriet and I had a great conversation about some of the things she did in her life. And, she told me she had 7 kids. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter living with us. That's enough. I don't know how you did it with 7. She told me that, she was taken out of school at grade 9 to look after the family. And then a few years later, she moved in with somebody else and learned all the attributes which stood her in good stead for the rest of her life. Got married, 7 kids, became a counselor. I said, why did you become a counselor? Someone thought it was a good idea. Okay. So I said, why only 1 term? She said, well, I wasn't sure, but someone thought it was a good idea, but I lost. Okay. And she told me her #1 achievement was getting the bridge over Black Creek on the Robertsville Road repaired. or replaced. Apparently, the bridge would float in the spring, so they would go out and pile large rocks on it to keep up. Like, this is before my time being in the area. And then I've taken them off again. And she's got culverts in there, and she's really proud of that. And you should be. It's a good job. Okay. She was also heavily involved with the North Frontenac Community Services, which is now Rural Frontenac Community Services. And then she became a stalwart of the Snow Road Community Association. And I remember being there when Harriet spoke, you listened. Because if you didn't, you heard about it. So, which is really good. So anyway, Harriet, congratulations. You have earned this. I know you've got family coming, you got all these friends here, and you've got numerous awards and plaques and so on. But I'd like to give you this. It's with great pride on behalf of myself and council that we can give you Senior of the Year Award for 2024. There we go.
Well, thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
And council.
Would you like to say anything else?
No, I told you I don't.
But you were a counselor.
Well, yes, I was.
Okay.
And I enjoyed that. It was interesting.
It is that, I assure you.
You found that out, right?
Already?
Yeah. Well, good.
Okay, so we're going to take your picture, and I think you've got a cake for you to share here.
Oh, really?
Really?
Wow.
Unless you want to take it home and deprive everybody.
I don't think that would be a good idea.
I don't either.
You might complain.
No.
No, you wouldn't?
I want your vote. I want one more term. I want your vote. We're going to take your picture, okay?
All right.
Can we get you the...
Yeah.
Council will... At this time, council will leave the regular agenda and move into a closed session. We'll be back later.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Engel, seconded by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that council retires to closed session at 5:23 p.m. to adopt minutes of a closed meeting held April 12th, 2024 and April 26th, 2024 to discuss current litigation or potential litigation and to consider confidential solicitor advice.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Okay. We're back into open session. The item is Rise and Report. We went into a closed meeting session where we discussed some legal advice and the potential for litigation, and we passed the minutes of the previous two closed meetings. And we have a resolution that we'd like to share with the public.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, second by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that council receives for information the Public Works Manager and Clerk Planning Manager's administrative report entitled Thompson Road Property Exchange. The council approves the exchange of the lot road allowance and shore road allowance northwest of the Thompson Road in exchange for the Thompson Road through Rule 01002020-200, subject to the road being surveyed to a width of 20 meters across the entire length of the property to access the boat launch area and for the parking area being approximately 9 meters wide beyond the new road allowance on the east side and 36 meters long. And the council approves the exchange of the lot road allowance between Thompson Road and Gull Lake Road and the shore road allowance east of Thompson Road along the entire frontage of the Thompson property for the Thompson Road through roll 10/2023-200, survey 20 meters from the western edge of the road easterly, and that the chief administrative officer is authorized to sign the land exchange agreement, and the council instructs the clerk to complete the public notice for the closure and sale of the road allowance in accordance with the sale of land policy.
Any further comments? In favor of the resolution? That resolution is carried. Okay. So on to item 6 of presentations. We're very fortunate to have the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority here to talk to us about land conservation strategy and then about water management on the Mississippi. Ladies, the floor is yours. Yep. Yeah. You have to turn that mic on, I think.
Okay, good. Did that work? Yes, it did. Wonderful. All righty. So thank you. So as you know, in recent years, our mandate has been, modified a bit by the province, and they've come out with several regulatory requirements that we have to fulfill. And there's 6 of them that we have to complete by the end of this year. And so I'm here to talk to you today about one of those deliverables, because it's something we need to do in partnership, not only with all of our member municipalities, but also other organizations who do land management within our jurisdiction. So just to recap what our current mandate is and how this falls within it. So we have, as our mandatory deliverables, we manage natural hazards. So that includes not just flooding, but also drought, unstable soils, unstable slopes, and the hydrologic functions of wetlands. It includes source water protection, which isn't an issue in your municipality, but it is down in Carleton Place and Mississippi Mills, where they have municipal drinking water supplies. And then lastly, the conservation and management of land. And I note here, it says passive recreation. So it's the facilities that we have where it's simply passive, people are doing hiking and the like, those still are considered Category 1 programs. If you remember from last year, the negotiation and the agreement we've had to enter into with you guys. So those are all our core mandate right now. And this falls under a combination of the first and the third of our core mandate, in that not only do we own property that's, our conservation areas, but we also own a bunch of dams, and those dams have land, and we need to manage those properties as well. So the direction we have from the province is to create this strategy by the end of the year, and it has to contain policies that govern the acquisition and disposal of land. Right now, the Conservation Authority has no guidance policy telling me, as the GM, when we should accept or consider disposing of property. Anecdotally, we get, several offers per year where people want to donate land. And I literally just direct staff to put it over to the land trust, because I have no direction to acquire land, establish more conservation areas. So this policy document is going to be asking me the question, and me in turn to the board and to the broader community, do we want and need additional conservation authority areas over the next 15, 20 years kind of thing? So much like you have an official plan that dictates, what your vision for the future is, we're being tasked to come up with a similar type document that says, in terms of our land management, what do we want to do in terms of future acquisitions and disposals? The one thing you may be aware of, I think, is, for instance, we're actively trying to dispose of the K&P trail, right? We're looking to, turn that over to the county so they can have one integrated loop trail, right? So that would be an example of where we might want to do disposals. Also needs to speak to what programs and services we're going to have on those properties. So if you're going to own the property and acquire the property, what are you going to do with it? So the policy document needs to address that. And so one of the things that we need to address is the fact that we do own properties that we're not doing anything with, quite frankly. We acquired them through various means, and we need to figure out whether we want to keep them. and whether or not we can continue to deliver some of the services up at those sites that are no longer a Category 1 in the new sort of regulatory framework. So we need to be able to answer that question in this document. And then the last point that you see here is that we need to make sure that any land that we're owning or acquiring going forward, that we need to do that in an integrated fashion with yourselves and the province. So for instance, when I look at North Frontenac, I mean, you already have what I consider an excellent, thing going with the province in terms of the administration of the parklands, right? So you've set up a really good system for collaborating for the, those kind of properties. And there may be more opportunities for you to do that as demand increases in this community, because I think I hear anecdotally that, you get booked up really fast these days. I don't know if you still have any openings for this year or you're totally booked up, but in any event, you are a success story, right? By the work that you do here. So one of the things that we need to think about as the Conservation Authority is we're not looking to duplicate effort of others, we're looking to integrate, not duplicate. So that's why we're doing this study, is to meet these objectives set for us by the province. So just to recap what we do currently own or have a legal interest in. So we have our dams, there's 11 of them. We have our conservation areas. We also have land along the Clyde River in North Lanark Highlands that we acquired because there was areas that consistently flooded out. And back in the 90s, when the province had money that they gave to the CAs, we actually bought out a bunch of people so that we could remove those houses or cottages from the floodplain. So we still own those properties. We also have an agreement with a land trust for a wetland, so we have a legal obligation on that. We also built with the City of Ottawa back in the day, an erosion control structure on the Ottawa River. And so there's sort of historical easement rights associated with that. So there's all these historical things that we need to kind of clarify and resolve and decide, do we want to maintain those interests or do we want to do quick claims and just be rid of them kind of thing. So carrying on. So interestingly, not everybody realizes, but only 4 of our 6 conservation areas are owned by the CA. 2 of them we actually have under lease agreement with the City of Ottawa. And the Morris Island one, which is right on the Ottawa River, part of it is in fact owned by Ontario Power Generation. So, we don't necessarily own all of our conservation areas. And one of the things that I want to talk to the County of Lanark about, for instance, is that rather than looking at acquiring land, they have all their county forests. Maybe there's opportunity to convert one of their sites to an additional conservation area if they so chose, right? That you don't necessarily have to acquire land to establish more facilities. So where I'm leading with this is, the shared service model, much like what you are doing with the Crown lands within your jurisdiction, and the fact that North Frontenac, and we just renewed our lease agreement for, you guys to do operations on the Palmerston site, right? We have done similar agreements with other organizations, and there continues to be that kind of opportunity. So for instance, at the Carp River Conservation Area, if you guys go to Sens Games, it's really just naming rights, and we have the right to put up educational signage and duck boxes and that sort of thing. So it's very limited. So then even when you conceptualize about what a conservation area is, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a full service type of facility. So the reason why we're talking in this broader sense is because, as with your official plan where you do 20-year planning, we're basically looking at what are the pressures on the land going forward, both in terms of from a natural heritage preservation perspective, what are the pressures that are on the land where we might want to protect certain areas, and what are the pressures on the land from growing recreational demand. So you've seen it here in your jurisdiction. In Lanark Highlands, there are certain Crown lands there that during COVID were seriously abused, and continue to, see intense use. I think, just in thinking aloud, maybe there's an opportunity for North Frontenac to partner with Lanark Highlands, in terms of, again, with MNRF to do it, maybe expand your program. I'm just, thinking aloud here, but there's these sort of interjurisdictional opportunities that we could explore collectively on how we meet growing demand across the watershed. So there are insufficient campgrounds, mountain biking, skiing, and hiking spots. The key messaging we're hearing from a lot of the folks doing social science work and research in our jurisdiction is, and we hear it in the news on a regular basis, is younger people are more into experiences than they are into buying land and that they can't afford, and et cetera, anyway. So they're more invested in getting out and camping and mountain biking and the like, because quite frankly, that might be all they can afford to do. There is, as I mentioned already, the intense use of Crown land, but we're also, especially closer into the city, the city of Ottawa, and so Mississippi Mills, Beckwith, Drummond, North Elmsley, we're seeing people encroaching onto farmland. They're coming along the Trans-Canada Trail, but in the absence of a destination that they can get off and explore, they're literally getting off and exploring people's private property. And I was speaking to a farmer recently who had a friend where the person actually went into their farm, like the barn. So it's shocking what people will do. But so what that comes to my mind is that we need more destinations along the trail that, that people can go to and maybe get out and do that kind of exploratory thing. From a land development perspective, we're seeing a lot of land consolidation, obviously further downstream in the watershed, but fragmentation throughout because of land severances and the like. And so that has obvious consequent impacts on natural heritage systems. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but if you're targeting development in certain areas, then maybe we want to look at other areas where we want to protect, right? So, I mean, all that to say, there's these pressures that we're incurring, and this next drawing sort of shows you from at least a commuting travel time perspective where the greatest impacts likely are. And so if you can see where we did travel times from, so from Stittsville, Smith Falls, Carleton Place, Iron Prior, and then we went down to Kingston, Tweed and the like, to see how far can people come into our watershed from these various different locations. And you can see that, easily 2/3 of the watershed is accessible in an hour or less from a huge swath of Eastern Ontario. And not surprisingly, that's where we've seen the greatest, removal of wetlands and forests and intensification of development. The flip side to this is those areas in orange and red are also where the greatest opportunity lies to provide potentially future conservation areas, those kind of destinations that provide people an opportunity to go hiking within a reasonable distance of their home. So the other thing on this is that, it does show that as these communities grow, your municipality as well is going to, eventually become orange, right? So it's one of those things where the population, we all know the population projections are going up. Eastern Ontario is one of the fastest growing areas of Canada. And the jurisdictions, that we oversee in terms of Mississippi Mills, Beckwith, and D&E and Carleton Place are within the top 20 of Canada. So, that creep of impact is making its way west towards your jurisdiction. But when I read your official plan and your parks plans and the like, you have a vision and you're doing a lot of work in this area. We just want to make sure that we're integrated with your vision and we're not duplicating effort and stepping on each other's feet in this area. So on this, our current role is to operate existing facilities, but what we're being mandated by the province to do is to consider in future what we may want to expand or set anew. Obviously, our watershed's over 4,000 square kilometers. And we have no money in the bank to do any sort of acquisition. So this is purely hypothetical. I hope you all understand at this point, right? But that's what planning documents are about. You have to state your vision, you have to sort of map out a plan, and then over time, hopefully you'll get there, right? So this is not something that we're looking to, you know, start to establish new conservation areas anytime soon. This is maybe 3 conservation areas over the next 20 years, possibly, you know? So, but we want to make sure we do it in an integrated fashion. In the meantime, there's all this land where there's opportunities for stewardship. So we would want to be focusing on our stewardship efforts, letting the vast majority of land is in private ownership and working with those folks. The second piece of this, I'm now heading back to the dams, is we own a lot of dams, and most of those dams are in North Frontenac. So the second piece we really need to focus on is really nailing down all the land ownership issues around those dams. So we had started some work around Shabamika and Mazenal. We need to conclude those. We'd started those when we were doing the planning for Shab. There had already been documents on file with Barrie Township back in the day for Mazenal. We just got to put a bow on those things and nail them down. And so part of the problem, and Jen's done boatloads of work on this, is so many of these historical documents, either they reference plans that never got registered or that we can't even find anymore, or thence and there, you know, and reference, you know, there's no registered drawing on file with the land titles or land registry. So it's probably going to be a lot of survey work, but I think we need to dot our I's, cross our T's, and nail down all these things. So I think that's going to be one of the major goals coming out of this plan. So I just wanted to give you guys a head up on that, because it's going to be a lot of paperwork, but I think it'll be time well invested. And then the second piece, which is potentially more controversial, is we are in a period of climate change. We are developing and enhancing a watershed model that is going to allow us to do predictive modeling to see what the limits are, our current dams are. You know, Jen's going to show you a graphic and during her presentation that illustrates very nicely that there's only so much we can control. And if we want to control more to address either drought and or flooding, we need to contemplate how structures might change over time, and even the possibility of relocating or setting a new structures. So it's not something that we do in the province of Ontario in recent years, building new dams, but I think it's something we need to put on the table and just start to wrap our minds around, that in a changing climate, we might need to. I think that was my one more. So going forward, so I'm talking to you guys. We're putting together some documentation that we're going to be tabling for the public and yourselves to review. And we're going to be putting some questions out there, you know, in discussion papers, some to help us address some of these policy questions. Maybe in our jurisdiction, we don't want any more conservation areas. Maybe there's a feeling that what we have is sufficient for the next 20 years, and or that the municipalities and the province are going to fulfill that need. So, you know, and et cetera, these sorts of questions that are going to be posed in these documents. So I'm here today just to give you the heads up about what this is all about, that these documents are coming down through the pipe, and we're hoping to engage not only with yourselves, but residents and others in a conversation about what is the role of the Conservation Authority in terms of land ownership, management, all that sort of thing. So that's my presentation.
Any questions, Council Deputy Mayor?
Sally, right at the beginning, you said that when people come to you and want to donate land, you don't have a policy, you can't accept it. You pass them on to what was the
Mississippi Madawaska Land Trust.
The land trust. So it's the Mississippi Madawaska Land Trust, specifically and exclusively where you send them, and they have policies about what they will accept. And
yes, occasionally we'll approach a local municipality as well if they've indicated to us that they're interested. I don't know if you guys take on land much at all. We've never received, to the best of my knowledge, offers. It's mainly down in the lower watershed where people have farms that there's no children inheriting it, you know, there's no interest or something like that. So, but we get, you know, a handful a year.
And you're supposed to come up with a policy by the end of this year, and you're here to tell us that you're looking for input. So where's that policy gonna come from? Are you gonna hire a consultant, just you or the board?
Well, the board will have to approve it. So I'll be drafting it.
As she looks at Roy.
No, I mean,
I mean, that's a big,
Contemplate
that's a
it.
big job.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. No, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, that's my, just so you know, that's what I did for a living. becoming
You're a
the-
planner.
Yeah, and policy planning work is our,
I suspect there are people in the community who might want to donate pieces of land for new conservation areas. I mean, I'm just guessing,
Mhm.
but I suspect that the land trusts are restricted in what they want and what they can. I mean, they have to put out money if they take a piece of land. It's not free.
yeah, that's absolutely correct. You have to spend the money to take it on. There's research work. They have to adhere to a whole policy framework for land trusts in terms of studies they need to do, and they have to come up with plans for the properties. And then legal title search, just like everybody does, right? So for the properties that they've acquired in the past year, we in fact were able to channel some federal funds to them to support them in that work.
Our own Palmerston Canado conservation area came as a gift, I understand,
That's
from
right.
a private landowner years and years ago. I don't know when it was.
Yeah, and they acquired an adjacent property just this year. Yeah, this year. So now
MBCA did?
no, the land trust.
Oh.
So it's now even a bigger site. Because that's one.
So there's one piece owned by MBCA and then
Yep.
right next to it, there's a, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
No, it just happened within the past few months. Yeah.
Councillor Hoodle.
I don't have a question, just a comment. I have the privilege of being on the board, and I just wanted to say that with Sally's leadership, we have nothing to worry about. It's outstanding. She does a great job. So
Thank
just
you.
welcome.
To admit, she's very calm about this. She got 7 months, 6.5 months. So that's okay. I was thinking about when you're doing it, so it's like, how are you gonna do this?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Fowler.
Can you tell me the status of the 35 kilometers of the KMP trail right now?
Sure. Okay, so we're all in agreement that we want to sell it and that the counties want to buy it. So there was a period of time where the county of Lanark has been, coordinating on behalf of all 3 counties, and they retained legal counsel to do a title search, and the title search has yielded up conflicts on the length of the KMP. And we've only just in the past couple of weeks sort of got a sense of the magnitude of what those conflicts are. If you can envision, that railway was built, that easement was taken back in the 1800s. So, and yet not all of the 200 or 100 acre farm parcels actually show the railway. So there's odd things like that where the railway doesn't even show. So there's all those kind of funky kind of land registry things that we're going to have to resolve. And what the key is that we in the counties need to figure out what that process is going to look like. And quite frankly, who's going to pay for what and who's going to manage the asset in the interim. Are we going to do a lease agreement, and what does that look like? So, but we have, because this is all rather new to us, I haven't had this conversation with the counties yet.
You're going to be working with the other 2 counties,
Absolutely.
Lanark and Renfrew.
Yeah, and I'm presenting to county council in Frontenac in a couple of weeks. I think it's the 19th. And I'm prepared to answer questions. I was told by the Parks fellow, the economic development guy, I forget his name, Richard, that he didn't think it was necessary because you were wanting also to know about the law case. And I can't talk to you about that in open council, just FYI. So,
So just for information, the county has approved the purchase of the remainder of the KNP trail within Frontenac County once it's free and clear of all legal issues. And we understand there's one left to deal with. And that's been rather persistent. And we did turn down, or not turn down, we deferred a decision to enter into a lease.
Okay,
Because, and actually Fred and I were there, and we felt that if we lease it and it goes, the property in question at the northeast corner it goes south and we don't, or you're not successful in getting it, we may sink a whole lot of money into the KNP north of 50 or 511, 509, sorry. And may have to end up expropriating all the other good stuff and so on. So we have the agreement to buy it and we want it. It's just a matter of clearing up the legal hassle.
exactly.
You were talking about camping and campsites and that. Is anybody allowed to camp on your properties, or do they have to go to an established campground?
We don't permit camping. Some conservation areas permit it, but we don't at ours. We're not set up for that.
Has it ever been thought of? Ever been considered?
I would need more money. I'd need to make sure the business case work. I'm not 100% opposed to it. I'm just, unlike a lot of conservation authorities, we own dams. A lot of conservation authorities don't own dams. And as you know, dams are expensive. So
Yep.
if I had to choose between investing in campgrounds and investing in dams, so.
Point, we have one counselor who could not connect tonight, and he left a note saying Big Gull Lake Dam left off of map.
Which map? Oh, on yours. Okay, well.
It says 13 dams, I counted 12 as well. So anyway, just take a look at it.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so any final questions? Tara?
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the presentation from Sally McIntyre, General Manager of the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, entitled Land Conservation Strategy, and thanks her for her time spent today.
Thank you.
Any final comments? In favor? Carried. Next issue is water management on the Mississippi River.
Turn that on. So for those who don't know, my name is Jennifer North. I'm the Water Resources Technologist for Mississippi Valley Conservation. I've been with the authority for 18 years, and I've been working in the Water Management Department. So first I'll give you kind of a short background of the Mississippi watershed, and then go into the water management. Again, I can't go into a deep dive into the water management as that will take forever. So we'll just do kind of a skim the top. So next, I have the slide there. Perfect. So the Mississippi River, which starts just above Mazenau Lake and runs into the Ottawa River just below Goleta. It is 212 kilometers long with over 7,000 kilometers of rivers and streams. The watershed has a drainage area of almost 4,000 kilometers squared. There are over 250 lakes in the system, with the majority of them located in the upper portion of the watershed. MVCA operates 19 of the 23 dams on the system, including 2 OPG dams and 6 MNRF dams. 13 of those dams are located in North Frontenac Township. The Mississippi River begins at an elevation of 325 meters above sea level and drops over 250 meters to an elevation of 73 meters above sea level at the Ottawa River. It has limited flow control, particularly in the lower portion of the watershed. The area below Crotch Lake, that includes Dalhousie Lake, Mississippi Lake, and the lower reach of the Mississippi River, contains most of the system's flood damage centers. and is largely unregulated with very little storage capacity. So all of the dams in the western portion of the watershed were originally built for the lumber industry and in mid 1800s to late 1800s. And they were built to maintain enough water in the system to allow timbers to be floated downstream 2 to 3 times a year. So the purpose of these structures have become diversified with the changing conditions in the watershed. We manage these dams now for flood and drought control. We also need to maintain specific flow and level requirements for lake trout, walleye, bass, and pike. Stable levels are required for wildlife such as loons, frogs, muskrat, and beaver. Recreational tourism and navigation has become a necessity as a result of the extensive development along the watercourse over the last 70 years. And the system must be managed for erosion control, ice management, low flow augmentation, and lastly, tries to maintain sufficient flow for hydro producers. So the history of the development and management of the dams in the Mississippi River has evolved to today's management regime. One that tries hard to balance the sometimes conflicting needs of all the uses and still maintains the ecological integrity of the river system. In the early 2000s, the specific goals and objectives were discussed through a complex planning process by the vast majority of stakeholders. And the Mississippi River Management Plan was developed. Out of this complex plan came the preferred operating plans for each dam with set target levels and upper and lower operating ranges. And I highlight the word preferred, not perfect, as it's always going to be a balancing act and will most likely need revisions in the future for the needs of the change as the watershed changes. So this is a graph of one of our operating plans, so you can see how the red line is our target levels. The blue line is our historical average, and the black line is our min and max upper and lower operating range. So we have their target levels are very small when it compared to our operating plans, our operating ranges. And we try to keep the levels within those targets. So the system is managed as a system. We do not manage the water for any specific lake or any specific purpose. Every fall, the dams are operated, the dams in the upper watershed are operated to draw down the lakes to provide storage for the spring runoff. As snow melts and spring rains occur, the lakes are gradually filled to reach summer target levels for recreation and tourism. Conditions must be monitored to ensure that the targets can be reached while ensuring adequate storage remains for late spring rainfall events and sufficient flows and levels are maintained for spawning. In doing so, there is a reduction in flooding to areas downstream as the uncontrolled flows from the Fall and Clyde River move through the central and eastern portion of the system. So we provide that lag time and provide that release so that all the other water in the uncontrolled areas in the lower part can kind of get through the system before the upper part is full. So once the runoff is over, all these dams, except for Crotch Lake Dam, is operated to maintain relatively stable elevations for the recreation throughout the summer months. Crotch Lake is unique as it's the only true reservoir lake on the system from late June to early October, Crotch Lake is drawn down to ensure flows into the lower portion of the river. So on years, it's normally about 60% of the water coming out of Crotch is supplying the system, but in years where we have drought issues, it's close to 90% is coming out of Crotch and supplying water downstream. So the Crotch Lake normally fluctuates close to 4 meters over the course of the summer. So because of that uniqueness of that lake, we wouldn't be able to operate the system the way we do without that lake. Throughout the fall, all the other lakes are being drawn down. Crotch Lake is then filled again. So we use that water instead of pushing it downstream, it goes into Crotch and it stays there. And then from January to March, the Crotch Lake is then again drawn down to provide maximum storage for the spring. So adaptive management. The most important factor in trying to manage the river system is the one thing that absolutely we have no control over, which is the weather. Rain and snow melt dictates whether we will have a flood. Have enough water for recreation and in the summer, and simply be able to manage the river in the way the residents are accustomed to. We can't make it rain when we need water, nor can we stop it once we have enough. What we can do is recognize the changes in the weather and adapt our management practices where needed. This is essential for managing the Mississippi River system. We saw it with this year's winter, extreme changes in the weather patterns, and the statement, "It's never been like this before," is becoming a more common occurrence. Part of managing the river requires forecasting the weather 2 to 3 months in advance, year round. The system is operated based on the forecast and then adapted to deal with unexpected weather events. Some examples of some of kind of the common decision-making and adaptiveness we have. A cold snap in early April can dramatically change situations as runoff flows slow down and spawning may be delayed. The longer the snow remains on the ground in the spring, the more susceptible we are to a quick and rapid melt, which causes flooding as it overloads the system all at once. So we would be delaying putting in logs and watching temperatures in the forecast very closely to adapt to that scenario. Another example is winds and temperatures just above freezing can cause snowpack to sublimate rather than melt, which reduces the water available to fill the system. This happened in 2015. We had significant snowpack and lost it all to sublimation and didn't see any runoff, and was dealing with low water going into June. And of course, what happened this year where we had not a lot of snowpack at all, extremely early freshet. We started filling the lakes early, and then we got hit with lots of rain that brought levels up to a second peak. So some discussions on how to resolve these yearly variations include creating a larger reservoir to provide additional flood capacity and low flow augmentation capabilities, changing the operational guides and the target levels to provide more storage in Pacific lakes, or reducing drawdowns so dry years levels can be closer to historical conditions. Each of these scenarios have some merit and in any given year might be a reasonable solution. But in reality is that observation is only available after the fact. And you can go to either extreme very easily within the year. Right now, what we can do is continue to adapt operations as needed to meet the challenges of the changing weather. That is anything. Any questions?
Any questions, Deputy Mayor?
Jen, that photo, that's the Crotch Lake Dam, I think?
That's Crotch, yeah.
Is that, I've heard Crotch Lake described as the toilet tank of the system by the disrespectful, but who operates that dam? Is it you guys or is it OPG?
OPG owns it and we operate it. We're under contract to operate it.
As opposed to High Falls, the next dam, which OPG owns and operates?
No, we operate the High Falls Dam. They run the generating station out of High Falls. So they actually operate both structures from Niagara Falls.
Well, there's no power generation at Crotch though, is there?
No.
It's
the reservoir that supplies High Falls. So it's the High Falls doesn't have any storage capacity. So it's run of the river. So they utilize Crotch Lake as their reservoir for that.
I'm just curious as to how you actually, this looks like a spillway, a weir, a spillway.
That's the weir. The actual structure is off to the left.
Oh,
there.
the level control is off to the side.
Yeah, that's the overflow weir.
Thank you.
Councillor Fowler?
I had an experience where one day my pontoon boat was sitting on mud and somebody had opened the High Falls Dam and drained it. So I guess, was it the problem from you or was it somewhere else?
That would have been Niagara Falls. So they took over the operating of the system last fall. So they're fairly new to the system. Before it was being operated through Cornwall. And so it was just the fact that some of the operators didn't understand the target ranges that we usually keep for that certain time of year, and they weren't it wasn't flagged and it would happen. And I only get the good thing that came out of that is that before I would only get an email with the High Falls elevation at noon and midnight. The noon and midnight elevation, I get a daily email. Now we have full control over the gauge at High Falls. So we have.
Yeah, it only took about 3 or 4 days to bring it back up to the level.
Yes,
but
exactly. We
sure
utilize water
intense
out of
for a while.
Crotch Lake to bring it back up. But yes, it was. I noticed it when I came in the morning and saw the email. I thought it was an error, and then I realized it wasn't. So.
Anyone else? Yeah, or Councillor Regis? Sorry.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you for this. This is probably the most understandable explanation I've heard of this stuff in a long time. I get asked this question at the beginning of every spring. Why is my lake low? Why is it this? Why is it that? So I actually have some answers now for the dozens of people that ask me these questions. And if you would ever like to come to a lake association meeting to talk about this, I would be happy to have you in my ward.
No problem. Yeah, and you can direct any questions or comments from residents. You can always direct them to me because I will be glad to talk to them about.
What about water quality? Every now and then we get lake association in particular, Mazenod is a big one, Canado to some extent, or Frontenac Lake Association Alliance. What are we doing about water quality, especially the aeration milfoil?
Yeah.
So
well,
where do you stand with this?
Yeah. Okay.
So there are actually 2 programs in effect. There's the provincial water quality program that we are the field people for. So they dictate which locations, what frequency, and we go out and grab the samples and we bundle them up and send them off to the provincial labs for testing. Then through your category 2 and 3 agreement, we do additional testing that allows us to do more different lakes and for a broader spectrum of water quality parameters. And we try to target different areas of our jurisdiction. I think the 2 key things we hear about across the entirety of our jurisdiction is intensification and the gradual modification over time of the chemistry within the lake, you know, because of gradually deteriorating septic facilities, et cetera. And then with climate change, that combining to result in algae blooms. And in this most southern downstream, there's more serious concerns about blue-green algae. So those are the two main quality, water quality issues we're hearing is, you know, your lake's great until it isn't. And then it's too late, is kind of the thinking. So especially down where, you know, you saw that show, what I showed you earlier in those areas of red and orange, those lakes have been heavily developed, right? And very intensely. And so, and for many, many years, because they were closer to urban centers. But as you become closer and closer in real terms to those urban centers, and you see that same level of intensification, invariably you're going to be facing the same problems as they are. I mean, it's just a question of time. It's not a if, but a when kind of question. So it's something that the township needs to grapple with is when do you want to, you know, really begin to tackle that and get ahead of the problem before you actually start to see the problems on your lakes. Right now, your quality is great, but that will change.
Such a comfort.
Well, you have the ability to control that though.
We do struggle with, well, struggle is not the proper word. We do or are considering eventually mandatory septic systems inspections and so on, but we send out 500 letters, offer to pay for it, look for volunteers, and we get like 10 or 15 systems, and 2/3 of them pass. So I mean, it's people don't want them, but maybe the decision time will become shortly when we have to do that. Yeah. So, anybody else? So thank you, ladies. Tara, please.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Herbert. Be it resolved that council receives for information the presentation from Sally McIntyre, General Manager, and Jennifer North, Water Resources Technologist from the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, entitled Water Management on the Mississippi River, and thanks them for their time spent today.
Any final comments? In favor? The motion is carried.
Great.
Thank you, ladies. We appreciate your
you.
time. Drive safe. You're welcome to stay if you want, but so we have no delegations. So item 10, adoption of the minutes.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that council adopts the minutes as circulated of a public meeting held on May 16th, 2024, and a regular meeting held on May 16th, 2024.
Comments? In favor? Carried. We have no business arising. Item 12A.
Moved by Councillor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information section A items of the clerk's administrative report entitled Communications of Interest.
Comments? Councillor Fowler.
Communications, number 6.
This is different than the county.
Pardon?
This is different than the county. Okay, go ahead with what you're talking about.
But we're in communications.
A.
Yes. Item 6. This is a report from the OPP, and it talks about the 2025 municipal policing billing statement and property count. And our municipality says we have 3,649 households, 53 commercials, and the property count is 3,702. Just is this fairly accurate? Just a question for Tara.
I don't know that. Maybe like what the impact data would be.
So yeah, so that is correct information. We have over 5,000 properties. So that is just households because the billing is based on households.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Fowler, I'd like to point out that this is at the county level. You bring these items up during the meeting, but usually here, if you have a question or a comment, you bring it up to the administration before, and they make an item so you have time on the agenda. Okay. Yeah.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Herber. Be it resolved, the council receives for information Section A items of the clerk's administrative report entitled Communications of Interest.
Any final comments? In favor? Carried. Communications Section B, action items.
Moved by Counselor Herber, second by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information an email dated May 13th, 2024 from Sue Barone resident advising the train at Mackay appears to be significantly different from much of the rest of the township and requesting the township put up a sign along Mountain Road indicating the split between the Madawaska and Mississippi watersheds. And the council instructs the Public Works Manager to look into the installation of a sign to indicate the boundary of the watersheds and provide council with pricing for potential signage at a future meeting for consideration.
Comments? Deputy Mayor.
I would like to solicit from Sue Barone, I don't know how you say her name, some comments further to why is the terrain around Mackay Lake significantly different? I'm in favor of putting a watershed marker there. But if she could provide some background information that might also go on the sign, I think that would be quite fascinating. There might be geological anomalies there that are worth knowing about. So I'd like to propose that we ask her to submit something in writing.
Anybody else? Councillor Fowler?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this is really something that we should be worrying about. I don't see the significance in it.
The only one, I've been told there's a watershed change at the corner of 506 and 41 as well. So, you know, if we do one, do we do them all? Yeah. And how many are there? If there's just two, that's one thing, but if they're, you know.
The road isn't well traveled. I don't really see the purpose of having that there.
Anybody else? Okay. All in favor of having the sign? Opposed? Carried. Okay. So the next item is B2, Lennox and Adding General Hospital, Capital Campaign Committee requesting donations for an MRI initiative.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Herber. Be resolved that council receives for information a letter from Lennox and Addington General Hospital Foundation requesting a donation for the purchase of a new MRI machine. The council instructs the clerk to contact the Lennox and Addington County General Hospital Foundation Capital Campaign Committee to request they provide a delegation to council to discuss this request.
Comments? Deputy Mayor.
Do we recall how much we gave, if any, to Smith Falls Hospital for their new MRI recently?
15,000 over 3 years, 5,000 a year.
Well, we kind of have to do the same for this hospital because it takes the other half of our population.
I want to defer to Councillor Reed for her opinion on this, but remember, we also put equivalent of $95,000 over 5 years into the Land O'Lakes family health team. So it's, you know, it's kind of a damned if you do and damned if you don't. So, but that has to be, or should be on the table. Stephanie, you have the floor.
I fully agree with the deputy mayor, partially because he's correct, partially because you can't give to one and not give to the other. The way our healthcare system is being just not treated properly is not okay. And I don't think that we should, I don't even know why we would ask someone to come here and ask us to give them money. I think this should be a given. And if we've already given it to Smith Falls, I have no problem doing the same for this hospital. The amount of people in this township that go to that hospital it's a large amount of people. They can't necessarily get into the clinic. And I don't think the clinic and the doctor recruitment, that's one thing. This is something entirely different. And if we don't support this hospital, this would be a shame to not make this happen from this township.
Hermer.
Just a correction to your figures about the investment. From the information I got, we got about $175,000 invested.
No, we have 20,000 for doctor recruitment. And we have 15,000 a year for 5 years. So that's 95,000.
You're forgetting about the previous ones.
Yeah, I know. I was talking about this term of council. Okay. Stephanie?
I think we need to keep in mind, if we think we're ever, I think we need to be aware of the fact that we can't sit here and think we're gonna get help from the feds in the province. The healthcare problem here is our problem. We need to deal with this problem. So if you can get some money from the province or the feds, be my guest. But in the meantime, we can't just not help someone or a hospital or a clinic that needs our assistance. Like the social services in this country are being eroded. It's not just this.
Mr. Hermer?
The province doesn't pay for hospital equipment, but they are responsible for healthcare. And the number one prime source of that healthcare is doctors.
Okay, so we're not arguing doctor recruitment. We've already made that decision. And, you know, I think we had a positive result. We did contribute to the MRI machine for Perth and Smith Falls General Hospital. And given that, you know, the percentage of population, they gravitate towards Napanee and Belleville, and maybe a little bit towards Kingston, where the other half gravitates towards Perth, Smith Falls, Kingston, and Ottawa. I think we have to do it, but do we have the money in the budget?
There's no money in the budget, so you would have to take it from the reserve fund if you wanted to donate for this year.
Deputy Mayor.
The resolution just invites a delegation. We're not making a commitment. Let's go one step at a time.
Okay, I just think we're already there with it. So, okay. So the resolution invites them, is inviting them to make a presentation. Then it's on the floor. All in favor of the resolution? Carried. Okay, Shore Road allowance closure and bylaw, Best and Loader.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Shore Road Allowance Closure and Sale by Best and Loader. And that's required by bylaw 2023. All that part of the Shore Road Allowance in front of lot 17, registered plan 1536, geographic township of Clarendon, township of North Frontenac, being part 1 on registered plan 13R22921, Big Gull Lake, and all that part of the Shore Road Allowance in front of lot 19, concession 6, geographic township of Barrie, being part 4 on registered plan 13R22540 Cashawacamac Lake, be declared as surplus and sold to the adjoining owners. Appraisals of the properties are not necessary, as these are Shore Road allowances, and the council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to stop up, close, and sell the portions of the Shore Road allowances.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 13B, Shore Road allowance application for approval in principle, Williams and Petherick.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Shore Road Allowance Application for Approval in Principle, Williams and Petherick. And the council approves in principle the application to close, stop up, and sell the Shore Road allowances as described below. Part of the Shore Road allowance lying adjacent to part of lot 27, concession 8, geographic township of Barrie, and part of the Shore Road allowance lying adjacent to part of lot 9, southwest range, geographic township of Clarendon, Big Gull Lake.
Comments? Deputy Mayor?
It's a bit of a non sequitur, but can I ask Kelly, unsold Shore Road allowances, are they considered in our assets and liabilities at all? Do you have any idea of what percentage are left?
I don't know. I don't know if Tara would have. No.
We're going to run out of this small revenue stream
Yes.
some years in
We
the
will.
future.
Yes.
Any final comments? In favor of the resolution? Carried. Item 10C, Big Gull Lake East End Cottage Association, Get the Lead Out Initiative.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the manager community development's administrative report entitled Big Gull Lake East End Cottage Association Get the Lead Out Initiative. The council supports the Big Gull Lake East End Cottage Association's initiative Get the Lead Out, and the council directs the manager community development to work with Big Gull Lake East End Cottage Association to provide free of charge 7 metal U-shaped U-channel sign posts, install 3 of the post signage collection tubes at Helen Lane Boat Launch, Crotch Lake Access Boat Road Boat Launch, and Plevna Waste Disposal Site. And Crown Land Stewardship Program staff collection of lead at Helen Lane and Crotch Lake Access Road delivered to Plevna Waste Disposal Site as required, and promote awareness of the program throughout the township's facilities, social media, and website.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Okay. Item, was it 10D?
Moved by Counselor Hermer, second by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the Public Works Manager's administrative report entitled Hills Lake Culvert Detailed Design, and that the proposed detailed design has been prepared considering comments from the community and represents an optimum solution given the variety of interests in the Hills Lake site. And the council approves the proposed detailed design and submission to the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority for approval. And the council approves the additional design fee of $8,000 plus tax for Jewel Engineering to be taken from the operating contingency reserve fund.
Comments? Darwin, the 8,000 is for the consultant's field work and so on during the construction. That's what I gather from the report.
It is. It's from the public meeting and additional design work on iterations, and then I think it's essential that we have them on site when we do the installation because these elevations were so important. So, so for their presence on site, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? In favor? Carried. Summary of proposed changes to the provincial policy statement and to the Planning Act and Development Charges Act.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the county planner's administrative report entitled Summary of Proposed Changes to the Provincial Policy Statement and Planning Act, Bill 185.
Comments? Deputy Mayor?
Are we going to have a presentation from Sonia on this one?
So actually I just got an email from her and she had to leave the meeting at 7. She did provide an email. Can I read it to you? Okay. As an update to my info report on Bill 185, the province gave it 3rd reading yesterday. The only changes made were minor ones to the appeal rights, which were changed to include some additional public bodies and specific persons such as hospitals, airports, and owners of pits and quarries. They also will allow a property owner to appeal a municipal change to their own property made through a new municipal OP or zoning bylaw, or during a 10-year update. But third-party appeals for neighbors and other citizens to on-site specific OPAs and ZBAs will not be permitted. And if you have any questions, we can follow up by email and I can get back to you.
John?
I would have liked to ask Sonia a question because on the EDTF, we have formed a subcommittee looking at what we call barriers to housing. One of those barriers is legislative, and we are trying to look at an accelerated way to allow 3 dwellings as mandated by the province on a single lot. So without having been aware of this report, I contacted Joe Gallivan a couple of days ago and asked him, is this a feasible thing to work on? Corey has pointed out to me that I don't want to be asking questions of the county that are going to cause this township to have a bill sent to us. I wanted to ask Sonia if research on this topic is part of their mandate and they will not be billing us, or if they will be billing us to answer the question of how do we get to 3 dwellings on a lot?
Sarah?
So I can answer that. So we are going to have to do an official plan amendment, and we'll also have to do a zoning bylaw amendment, similar to when we put secondary units in. So that work we will have to pay the county for, to update our OPA and or update our official plan or zoning bylaw. The research that they're going to do on how it's going to be implemented, there's a bit of, it's same thing when we dealt with secondary dwellings. Because we don't have, a lot of those policies are drafted where they have municipal sewer and water. And we don't have that. We do have to look at ensuring that those can be serviced through wells and private septic systems or communal services. So we have to look at, what size lot do we need to be able to accommodate the additional unit, 2 additional units, even some of them are even going to 3 additional units in the cities. So there will be research, but I anticipate that research will be shared amongst the 3 townships that they provide services for.
I guess for direction to our little subcommittee, then we had better be careful what we ask the county planners to do for us, because we don't want the township to incur a bill as a result of our questions.
So kind of how the contract is set up is we pay by the hour. It's sort of divided out, and then it's over a 3-year rolling average. So they take how many hours they spend for us, Central, the islands, and on county work, and then they spread it out over the 3 years, and we pay based on usage. So yeah, if we use them, we end up paying. That's just how the contract is set up.
I think here on in, I'll go through you first.
John, your committee might want to look at increasing the number of units and like increasing the land size and getting into the 5, 6, 10 unit range, because then it triggers a whole different attitude. That's why we have this in Service Corporation. So, okay, so it's just something to think about. Anything else? Okay. In favor? Carried. Minutes of the Joint Health and Safety Committee.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the minutes of the Joint Health and Safety Committee dated May 7th, 2024.
Comments? Councillor Good sent us a note. He said we said before he couldn't connect, but he did add eye wash stations will freeze at some of the locations proposed. Corey?
Just in response, I think he's probably referring to the ones at some of the waste site buildings, Darwin, so that they're not, are they heated when the staff leave, or do the staff take them with them?
No, we used to take them with us, but now we have propane heat in all the shelters and it's turned down low and they're heated through the winter.
Any other comments? In favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, Committee of Adjustment Planning Advisory Committee.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the minutes of a Committee of Adjustment Planning Advisory Committee dated February 26, 2024 and March 25th, 2024.
Comments? In favor of the resolution? Carried. Notes of the Economic Development Task Force.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the May 27, 2024 notes of the Economic Development Task Force.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Giving notice of motion by a member of council to the clerk for council's consideration for inclusion on the next meeting agenda. I have one. I'd like council to consider implementing a senior wellness check, preferably through the 2 service agencies, the Land O'Lakes Community Services and the Rural Frontenac Community Services Organization. Deputy Mayor.
Isn't that already happening through the Frontenac Paramedic Service?
It is to some extent.
It's not good enough?
No, not from what I'm told. I mean, we may decide not. Okay. The other one is, and it's just occurred to me, is can we have someone look at the sound system we have in here? The amount of feedback we are getting from one instrument or one unit to the next is becoming quite excessive. It seems to be getting worse over time. Could they be tuned or whatever and so on? Okay. All right, so council's verbal reports, sorry. Sorry.
When you serve a notice of motion, we either have to have someone, so really the deputy mayor should chair at that point. So then you can move your motion and then you need a.
Well, I can have Stephanie do this. Look at me.
Do what exactly?
Well,
Give notice of motion.
we talked about
For
that.
your senior wellness check idea?
Yeah.
Is this just to give notice of motion? Because if it's not, I have a million questions about this. So I'm assuming you just want me to make a motion to entertain the idea?
It goes to council and the council decides whether or not they want to consider it. It's just to go on to the next agenda. Why do we need a seconder for this? Even with.
Could just write it in report.
My next comment.
Nothing is swift and simple. Okay. Okay, I'll take care of it. Okay, so I need a seconder for this?
Yeah.
No. I will move it.
And we'll ask the deputy mayor to.
Why is there a vote? Okay. Can you sign, would you mind?
Happy to help you with your admin report.
So moved by Mayor Lickey, seconded by Councillor Hudel, be resolved that council receives a notice of motion requesting council discuss the implementation of wellness check.
All in favor? Passed.
Oh, yeah. I still don't understand. I thought there was a three-part process where someone makes the notice, then it goes to council for consideration, whether council's even going to consider it. And then there's the third meeting where there's the actual consideration. Is that not the process? 3 meetings? It's 2 meetings. Okay. I'll have to. So I don't need an amendment report. I still want something.
Yeah, present persuasive argument, some form.
Details about what you mean by this. Who's going to do it? How often? Et cetera, et cetera.
Why am I defending this now? We are already paying $10,000 to.
Discuss it. Next time.
Yeah, so Councillor Regent and Deputy Mayor Engels. Okay, all right, so we are now at verbal reports. Here, okay. So at the county level, there is very little happening. Their next meeting is in 2 weeks. Kelly Pender is obviously retired. Kevin Farrell is the new CIO. Gail Chevalier, the head of the paramedics, has tendered her resignation. She's retiring in September. And that's about it. Really not much has happened. So I've not met with the North Frontenac Lake Association Alliance. I do have a meeting with the Malcolm Lake, Ardoch Lake Association on Saturday, along with councillors Hermer and Hudel. And that's it. Councillor Good is not here. Councillor Regent.
So I have a Lakeslands Family Health Team meeting this month, but I can give you a little update. Dr. Weldon will be here in August. He'll probably start taking patients in September. He has secured a great spot on cash for however length of time he needs until he buys something, which is his plan. And Jan and we had a nice chat the other day about she is she has got everything just ticking along beautifully. So if you ever go into that clinic and have a chance to see her, I would maybe thank her for the incredible work she has done on this. We have our Lake Association meetings coming up. And we're kind of at a standstill with the Police Services Board. We're just waiting to hear when our first meeting is. So I don't really have much to tell you about that, but will when we have a meeting.
You, Councillor Hoodle?
MVCA, we actually have a meeting on Monday and it's going to be at Kashawakaback Lake. We're going to be looking at the dam, seeing a presentation there. So I'll have more information then. Lake associations, we have, as you said, the mayor said, we have a meeting on Saturday and continue to meet with the technical advisory committee regarding the municipal services.
On the Cache Lake issue, like that dam is still 2 or 3 years out. They've got 5 potential solutions. But they're really focusing on taking the existing dam out during the winter and building the new one right on top of the existing one. I suggested building a new one immediately downstream, but they don't seem to want to do that because of the private lands that are adjacent to it and the additional cost because the dam would be longer and so on. That's their choice at the end of the day. So Councillor Hermer?
I spoke to Janice there a while back and she was telling me that there is a second doctor available right now, but they're not going to advertise for that until this one gets settled in.
Okay. All right. Okay. Councillor Fowler?
Yeah, Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, they had their 25th anniversary celebration on June 1st, last Saturday. And it was well attended, of probably about 50 people there. The next meeting that we have will be on June 12th, which is a Wednesday. As far as the trails enhancement, I did go by one of the trails and took a look at it up on Arco Road, and it looks like there have been people using it, which is a good thing. It's a loop. It's so many kilometers on the loops. I didn't get on the loop, but people have been there and using it. With the county, the only thing I'm on the planning and economic development meeting or board rather, and they canceled this meeting this last week. Lake associations. I do have some data for the they could hand out at the Lake Association. So if I get invited to one, I can hand out that data that Kelly provided us. Seniors and law enforcement together. The next presentation will be on June 21st in Sharpet Lake at Osso Hall, and it's more for seniors keeping active and healthy. And it's in connection with the community cafe. I got some photos I'll pass over to you. Brooke, appreciate that. That's it. Thank you.
I have nothing to report, unfortunately. I'm still expecting to hear from at least 3 lake associations.
I forgot, and John probably didn't want to mention it because of respect for me, but both he and I are meeting with Scott Underhill from the OPP on the 20th of June. Just sort of a meet and greet, the Cardinal Cafe in Sharpet Lake for half an hour. So. Introduction and reading of bylaws. Oh, sorry.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Hudel. Be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaws that have been circulated to all members of council. 2024-44 to close up and sell shore road allowances to Lauder and Best. 2024-45 to sign a lease agreement with Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, and that these bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Public forum, no one online, no one in the council chambers. Confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Hudel, be it resolved that bylaw 2024-46 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its regular meeting held June 6, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Hudel, be it resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 7:21 p.m. until June 27th, 2024, or at the call of the chair.
Any comments? In favor? Motion is carried. The meeting